Hey, I'm Ashley Adamson. Hi. I normally do this and I clap and I'm just changing things up because I want to keep it fresh for myself. You know how sometimes you feel like you get stuck in a routine and then you kind of lose a little bit of that creativity? I'm feeling that right now with making these videos, so I'm just trying to experiment with things, and one of those is getting my new jacket. Like, how cute is this? What do you think? It's got these like super long arms, and I feel pretty good about it. Of course, no makeup today, so I'm not really showing myself off maximum, but I think it's pretty cool. So today, we're going to talk about something that I think is really important for anyone. And I feel like a lot of trans people go through this question, and if you're making a big decision in your life, this could also be one of those things that you're going through, which is like, the question, as I would phrase it, would be, should I do it? Should I go for it? Maybe it's, am I willing to risk this? Or perhaps you may be phrasing it like, I don't want to lose something, or I don't want to have this problem, but I'm afraid of the consequences if I do something to change my situation. That's all to say, like, when you're thinking about should you make a choice to do something and there's a lot of risk involved, the consequences can be so frightening, right? That you may feel stuck in making that decision. You may feel stuck in getting your way through that, right? Like, how's that for you when you're facing these really large decisions? Do you feel like you want to sit on it for a while? Are you ready to go immediately? Do you want to think about it? Do you want to ask people for advice? How do you want to go about following through on that big choice or that thing that may frighten you? I'm going through this now, which is why I make this video, and I've gone through it many times before in different shapes and forms, and maybe you have too. When I was beginning my transition, it was, should I start hormone therapy? Is it right for me to come out as transgender? Is it okay for me? Is it safe for me to go out in public as a woman? And, I've done all of those things now, but I'm still facing these kinds of questions. How about you? For me, right now, this question is, should I go to London to join some friends in a movie premiere, which sounds pretty cool, right? But I also got a text from my sister warning me about this because London right now has got a lot of COVID, and I am 7 months on my vaccination, which means there's a 90% chance I won't die if I get hospitalized, but that doesn't stop me from getting hospitalized, and it's less than a coin flip in terms of my immunity to COVID if I get it. So if I get it, there's a higher chance that I'll actually experience symptoms of it than not. And yeah, like, maybe you could say that's a small thing because if you get it, maybe you'll just be sick for a couple weeks. But also, if you get it, maybe you won't be sick for just a couple weeks. Maybe you'll be sick for 12 weeks or longer. Maybe my own breathing problems that I have, my own issues with, maybe maybe it'll be even harder to breathe, and those will be long-lasting symptoms. I don't really know. So I have a lot of anxiety around this because it's kind of like, it's a big thing. I mean, do you have anxiety around getting COVID? Because for me, I mean, as a trans woman, there's also medical layers to this. Like, I don't fully know what it's going to be like as a trans woman and all the interactions there. Anyways, I've been contemplating this, and I've been thinking, should I go? Should I not go? What do I do here? How do I make this decision? And I realize this is the same process that I should apply with every decision that I've had that it's been big. It's like, you're making a calculated decision. You cannot predict the future, but what you can do is you can calculate it, and you can also work against it in whatever ways that you can. And the last one I would say is consult your intuition. check out what's going on. And I'll give you a technique at the end of this video of how to actually console your intuition, because that's sometimes the most crucial and important exercise to do, because it will tell you things that you can't otherwise understand or reach. So I'll tell you that at the end, but I'll do the more pragmatic ones at the beginning. So making a calculated decision, controlling the outcome, and you can't really control the future, and your intuition. I think those were the 4 points that I just came up with. Let me know if I missed one. Maybe I'll just cover it broadly as I speak about this. So it's a calculated risk. So calculating your risks here. So when you're looking at the thing that you have to kind of follow through with, or the thing that may frighten you, and I know I have a lot of trans people who watch this, so maybe you're also dealing with something specific to being trans, which is, should I come out? Is it okay for me to dress and go out as a woman or as a man? Am I going to be loved? Should I start taking hormones? What's going to happen? It's a calculated risk. So you cannot predict the outcome, but you can calculate things, right? So like try and remove the emotional fear from the potentials of what could happen, and look at it from a calculating perspective. Like, what is the percentage chance of things actually going wrong? Can you estimate that? What is the worst that would actually happen? For example, if you go out and you are, as a woman, this is something I went through. If you go out as a woman and you don't pass, which is something that has happened for me, you don't pass, there could be violence, right? But how likely is violence actually going to occur? Well, that's dependent on your neighborhood, that's dependent where you are, what time of day. But we grossly overestimate physical violence, and that, like, statistically is incredibly low. Incredibly low. It's like less than 1%, right? So, and yes, it's boosted against trans women especially, but like, remember, it's a much smaller percentage chance. And if you go with friends out, or you go into public places where there's other people, your chances are even lower, right? So the fear, the emotional fear of the spotlight syndrome, I would call it, where everything's focused on you, but that's not actually the case, is probably going to be driving a little bit of your decision making. So take a step back, try to look at it from more of a mathematical sense. That's one thing that I do. The next thing that I would say is kind of like, let's see, I said, I said you can't control the outcome, you calculate your decision, and your intuition, and, oh gosh, I forgot. I'm just going to go straight for the intuition then. So this is the most important one. Your intuition. Okay. So your intuition is probably the most powerful thing that you can use as a tool to help you figure out what you need to do. And I think all of us have had moments of intuition. Like, when I tell you or ask you, when was the last moment you really felt like your intuition was telling you something? You have a moment, right? And what was that like? What did it feel like? Were there visuals associated with it? Were there feelings associated with it? Where did you feel it in your body? Getting a little bit of knowledge about how your intuition communicates to you is super important into understanding how your communication will communicate to you. And once you start to recognize these signals, you can use it and leverage it more to check in on things. So when I was trying to make this decision for if I'm going, I thought about my intuition here, and I said to myself, what does my intuition say? And my intuition says, go, have a great time, it's going to be fantastic. And I go, okay, well, my logical mind says, or my emotional mind says, oh my God, there's like so many things that I'm afraid of. What if I get it? All this. And then I fall back on the statistics and numbers. Oh yeah, that's right. Controlling your outcome. You can control things against that. So I'll touch on that a little bit. So there's that, but there's the intuition piece. So if you want, you can just try and ask yourself this question. Is it okay for me to do this? Or how do you feel about that? And just ask your intuition as if it was a person. You're going to get a response. But sometimes your mind is going to want to generate that response more than your intuition. The thing that's a little nuanced here is your intuition is not your mind. Your intuition is something that's more of a feeling, a visual, or just like they call it your gut, but I don't experience it in my gut. It's just something that can come immediately that doesn't have words necessarily and doesn't have thinking behind it. It's just a feeling that innately exists. And I would call this your knowing. It's like tapping into that inner part of you that just knows something. So see if you can get a response that way. But I don't always trust that response because sometimes I can feel like my mind's getting in the way and that it's trying to project on the situation or it's trying to create an outcome that it's fear-based on. So this I'm afraid of. I'm afraid of catching COVID. So I know that there is a little bit of bias there, but it still said yes. So then what I would do, and this is probably the most crucial exercise here, is to take a step back and imagine yourself on a pathway. And I use this for every major decision. Imagine yourself on a pathway. See, feel, get a sense of being there, because then you're starting to get in touch with your feelings and you're less in your mind. And then imagine this fork here, and one decision going that way and one decision going the other way. Walk down the first path that you want to go. So for me, it was, should I go on the trip or should I not go on the trip? The first path I decided to go was, I'm not going to go on the trip. And you know what? It was a fine weekend. It was okay. Everything was pretty usual. And I kind of had this falling asleep experience at the end of the trip, which kind of tells me that it's just business as usual and nothing happens. Then I went down the London trip and I saw fun. I saw excitement. I also saw a little bit anxiety and fear, but everything was fine. And when I returned home, and this is kind of like was crucial for me, is when I returned home and looked a few weeks back at that decision to go to this trip to London, I felt a sense of this was the right choice. I felt like, wow, this really cemented my relationships with these new people that are my friends. And I'm so glad that I listened to my intuition and made the choice that was actually a little bit more risky. And that kind of that spoke everything to me. Oh, I should do that because my intuition says it's great. And if I look at the calculations of the risks, it's fairly low. And if I look at how I can control the outcome, which is the other one that I talked about, I can avoid going out to any parties. I can control the places and spaces that I'm in. And while I have friends who are staying with me there, we're not staying together for so long that I feel like I could get it from them since they are also newly vaccinated. So I've made my decision just by thinking about making this video. I'm going to do it. I'm going to fly out tomorrow and go to London. And I hope that talking about this with you has helped you think about your process and how you want to think about making those big life decisions and those things that you may be afraid of doing. I see too many people afraid of their life, afraid of the possibilities of what could happen if they take the risk for something that they want. And I want you to think about how you can go about making these choices that are really good for you and also discerning the ones that are not so good for you. Because I also see people make poor decisions. And it really comes down to using this variety of approaches of calculating your decision based on more like math, like probability. These are estimates. They don't have to be exact. Being able to control against circumstances, things that you want to avoid, which will increase your chances of success. And then consulting with your intuition, checking in, asking yourself, how should I be doing this? What should I be, what's the outcome going to feel like? And what's the outcome if I don't do this feel like? So hopefully that was super helpful for you. And I just want to give a shout out to my Patreon supporters for supporting me. And also people that purchased my book. That supports me too. I so appreciate it. For those that are trans, I've written a book for transitioning. And I also have an Embracing Femininity meditation series that I've also just recently published. So you can check all of those out in the link description below. And I'll see you in another episode soon. Bye.